All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Good evening. My name is Theo Ellington. I am one of the co-founders for Black Citizen, and extremely, I cannot underscore that word enough. Grateful to be here this evening with this esteemed group of panelists here. I want to first introduce my co-founders, and then we're going to jump right into this discussion because I know we've got the representatives here who are anxious to speak. We got Michael Tubbs here who's anxious to start and moderate this panel. Like I mentioned before, I'm Theo Ellington, native of San Francisco, co-founder of Black Citizen. I also have with me Obai Rambo. Obai, say hello.
Hey everybody, Obai here, also native San Franciscan and Vallejoan. And I think we're passing it over to Sarah.
Hey everybody, Sarah here. I've been in the East Bay a long time, going on 21 years. Just excited to hear this amazing panel. Stay tuned, we got way more than this.
Oh yeah, so this is the first in a series of events that we'll be hosting on behalf of Black Citizen. Just for folks who don't know, we started this organization a little over 3 or 4 months ago. Right as the sort of civil unrest was happening, we really wanted to provide a platform for Black folks to have conversations like this, have dialogue about the issues facing the community, but really with the underarching goal of changing the way we respond to issues in the Black community. This is, again, the first in a series of conversations that will be had on March 8th. We'll have the progressive DAs, Chesa Boudin, Rachel Rollins, Larry Krasner will come on and give their sort of discussion points around what it means to reform the system. We're also, on April 1st, we'll be hosting Latifah Simon, Fred Blackwell, and Jamie Allison Hope to talk about funding the movement. So you guys are kicking this off and really setting the tone for what Black Citizen is and what Black Citizen will represent. Let me stop talking. I'm gonna get myself off screen and hand it over to the legend, as I like to say, Mr. Michael Tubbs, who I've known for quite some time now. Michael and I think we originally met at a Democratic Party convention and have since been following you, obviously all the great work that you're doing. But let me stop talking. Michael, I'm gonna hand it over to you and let you all take it from here.
Well, first, congratulations to the Black Citizen co-founders. Thank you for this much-needed space and place to reflect and to dialogue. I think having the two reps on is amazing. Then having the progressive prosecutors on and the funders on are much-needed conversations. So again, Michael Tubbs here. I am so excited to be a moderator in this conversation between two state representatives that really illustrate sort of the lessons we learned during this month, it being Black Liberation Month. This idea that it's always impossible until you try, this idea that nothing's going to change unless we change it. So let me start with introductions. We have with us Representative Jeramey Anderson. He's a member of the Mississippi House of Representatives and currently running for mayor. I've known Jeramey from quite some time on social media because when they were saying young mayor this, young mayor that, I was always happy that Jeramey was always younger. And I was like, no, that's the young guy. That's the young guy. And so proud of his leadership, from ensuring people could vote, through being a board member of Let America Vote, to his work against voter suppression and getting Mississippi, his colleagues to really think about the future and how the South's past, doesn't have to be its future. And now we're also joined with the dynamic, newly elected state representative, Ms. Angie Nixon from Florida. Ms. Nixon is bad, y'all. She was an organizer for 10 years. And I know as a mayor, if I wanted something done, whether it was inside or outside City Hall, I would hire me or get me an organizer. She has organized around education with SEIU, on the Bernie Sanders campaign, and organized her own campaign where she got almost 60% of the vote against an incumbent. It's bringing bold, courageous, and principled leadership to the people of Florida. So you guys, thank you. And disclosure to our audience, I did not tell them what I'm going to ask. It's going to be a free-flowing and very comfortable family conversation. And I'll be on my best behavior because I'm not elected. I know you all are, and I won't lead you astray. And I see the little one. So shout out to look at the rep, mama, organizer, just doing it all. So my first question is really about, and it's something I used to reflect on a lot as mayor. And I didn't really reflect on it until the George Floyd assassination. And that was, what does it mean to be Black in elected office? And what I mean is that I was thinking so much about like the role, the job, and of course helping Black people, all people, but I never thought what it meant as a Black person to be a part and to be leading an institution or institutions that have inflicted so much harm. So I'll start with you, Rep. Anderson. Like, as a young Black man in 2020 and 2021 and 2017 when Trump was president, what has it been like to be a Black person who also is an elected official in the state of Mississippi?
Absolutely. Well, Mayor, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. And thank you to all of our hosts and Rep. It's good to see you, and congratulations on your victory. But to the question, it's one, we must hold ourselves to a higher standard at all times, because one thing that I did recognize during my initial run in 2013 is not only being young, but being a Black aspiring politician at the time. The spotlight is on you, and in multiple fashions, not only for what you do, but how you respond and how you react to situations when you're put under pressure. And being in a state like Mississippi, you are constantly, honestly, challenged with that very concept. And so what does that mean? It means that first and foremost, you must know who you are. You must know who you represent. You must also know the values that you hold near and dear to you, that you will not compromise on those values because they will be challenged. And so understanding those basic principles of your individual self, and understanding that the importance of your role in regards to representing not only people that look like you, but also having a more inclusive concept to portray what you believe government should actually look like. And that's one thing that I've tried to do during my 8 years in service so far.
Come on, 8 years, let's go. Not even 30 yet, and have a decade of service. That's what I'm talking about, brother. To Madam Rep, what particularly, I mean, Florida, every 4 years where all eyes are on Florida. We saw what happened to Brother Andrew in his race. We've seen this and heard about some of the voter suppression efforts. And we've had this conversation about the importance of Black women to not just the Democratic Party, but to democracy. Like there's no democracy in this country without Black women. So as a Black woman in Florida, like what is it like to be in a position of governance? What has it been like to lead over the past in elected office these past 60 plus days?
So thank you all. First of all, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. Kudos to Black Citizen and their line. So honored to be here. So what is it like to be a Black woman, a Black mom that's governing? It's hard work, right? But I think we were built for this, right? We helped build this country. We're resilient, and folks look up to us. And I'll never forget, I was recently at a protest, and the young gentleman who, I can't even think of his name right now, who actually got shot in the back by the cops while he was going into his car, his sister came down. And so like she heard me speak, and afterwards she got up and she spoke, and she was just saying just the fact that my hair is the way it is, right? Like the fact that I'm fighting and I'm a community organizer and running legislation like demilitarizing the police was one of the first bills that I helped file, right? Like it's really it's a lot, but I'm happy that I'm here, right? Because I have to be my authentic self, right? And I'm representing a community that actually oftentimes is voiceless, right? And knowing that this younger generation, our generation, and the generation under us, like we are unapologetic in who we are, right? Like, and we're pushing back, right? And we're trying to change the narrative. No longer are we wanting to assimilate, so to speak. We are coming full force in who we are, and I'm super excited that we have folks on the ground to help support us in doing so. But realistically as well, it's hard work, right? I'm a mom. And I have a 13-year-old and I have this newborn. Well, she's not newborn, a 5-month-old. So it's hard work, but I have to let people know that, you know, I am who I am, right? And I'm representing mothers across the country. And you're gonna see my baby on Zoom calls, right? And I'm going to write legislation that affects folks that look like me. And so that's what it is.
Well, let me follow up, mother organizer representative, and just in terms of, I know there's a tension fundamentally between sort of the organizing, the activism, the pushing that's required, and sort of being in the institution and getting the votes and building consensus and winning people over who may not agree. So how do you plan on negotiating that, or is there a negotiation in terms of moving from not being just an organizer, but now being an organizer who also is the man or the woman who sits in a seat of power?
Right. So I think using the same skills that helped me unseat a 2-term incumbent, right, is the same thing that I'm going to be doing while I'm legislating, while I'm governing, helping to legislate, right? And so it's really important to know like that there are no permanent enemies in politics, and you have to find some type of common ground. I know that the Speaker of the House here in Florida is a proponent of literacy, right? And so is a proponent of Black maternal health. So holding his feet to the fire on that. Me and my daughter, we wrote a book when she was younger because she did not like to read. And so, and she also didn't like her hair. So we combined the two. So calling him out on that and making sure that he's addressing the abysmal literacy rates that exist within Black communities and communities of color. And so you just find common ground on that, and you push for legislation that is going to enhance the quality of life of individuals that live in your community, right? And so also, unfortunately, there have been some gruesome killings here in my city, right? And they're done at the hands of teenagers, unfortunately, but they're done because the kids don't have anything to do. and because they're living in poverty and things like that. And so again, the Speaker of the House, he is a former prosecutor. His dad is a former NYPD officer. And so I met with him and I told him straight up, right? Like, we have to do something about this. And you having the background that you have, we need to do some intervention and prevention programs. And I just filed some legislation as it relates to that. And I know your background says that you want to change the community for the better. You want to help lower the crime rate. So if in fact that's what you want to do, then I need you to help pass these bills so that I can give it to these smaller nonprofits that are actually doing the work. These smaller nonprofits that are led by Black people that are actually doing the work, but that don't get funded. And so he said he's going to look into it, and I believe he's going to help me get this legislation passed.
I hope you watch it, Mr. Speaker. I'm making the list for you. The rep ain't playing with you. Rep Anderson, similar question, but I know for me, one of the biggest tensions to negotiate as mayor was being kind of the mayor of an entire city, a city that's only 10% Black, of a police department that's only 2% Black, and especially having to govern and lead and push during like the civil unrest of this summer, and sort of figuring out sort of how far can we go, what can we do, what can we say, like, and just all the internal conversations I had. So I would be very interested in hearing from you in terms of, as particularly as a Black man, as a legislator in the state of Mississippi, when you think about legacy of lynching, when you look at kind of modern day lynchings, how, like, what was your mindset? How did you think about a solution to what you were hearing from your friends and your brothers and sisters who were protesting in the streets in terms of Black Lives Mattering?
Sure. So, we actually just changed our state flag. I'm sure everybody know just this year. So kudos to us. But that was done after decades of hard work from my predecessor and my predecessor's predecessor. And so, when we'll just use our flag because that's our most recent issue. We had young people spearheading these efforts. This wasn't 60, 70-year-olds out protesting in the street. These were high school kids. These were college students that were just sick and tired, as we hear all the time, of being sick and tired. And so they galvanized and organized and moved to the streets to say enough is enough. Enough of killing innocent Black folks, enough of the voter suppression, enough of the inequities that we see in education in Black and brown communities. This is our state as well. And so we saw organizations outside of the state as well, like the athletic associations, putting pressure on the state to do something in regards to its divisive flag, which we know is a direct reflection of our dark, dark past in this state. And so, one of the things that I was so proud about when voting to change our state flag was the cooperation that we saw and collaboration that we saw across multiple demographics of people, and in regards to age, race, socioeconomic class. But one thing, as I continue to say when I speak about the state flag, is that it can't be our end all be all, because Mississippi still has a voter suppression issue. We still incarcerate way too many Black and brown people, and we know that that's disproportionate to Black and brown communities. So we've still got a long way to go, and we can't use this as an end all be all. This is just the starting point. And I see young people throughout the state of Mississippi that understands the value of putting in the work and getting it done. And that's exactly what you saw this summer in regards to our state flag.
And actually, let me backtrack a little bit, because I think and looking at the comments, my mom is in these comments. I'm not sure how you knew I was doing this event today, Mom. But hey, Mom. I think a lot of people are inspired. And you mentioned it, Rep Nixon, in terms of sort of physicality, how we speak, how we look, how it really speaks to a lived experience. So I'm curious, when did you decide to run for office? I remember when I decided to run for city council, part of it, I remember knocking on the door, one of my first doors, and a young Black man opened the door. And I told him I was running for city council. And he said, I'll never forget this. He said, "We could be on city council?" And I was like, yeah, I mean, we vote for city council. Why can't we? But over the years, I realized that so many of us have internalized that things like positions of power, things like governance are off balance for us. So starting with you, Rep. Nixon, when did you decide to run for office, particularly coming from an organizing background where most of the time you're pushing and you meet with the worst of elected officials who ain't doing nothing? Like, what made you think, like, you know what, I'm not just going to run, I can do it. I am the rep. I should be the rep.
Right. So let me back up. I actually ran for office fresh out of college. I didn't win. One of the reasons I ran, I was actually I had interned for the then city councilwoman, Mia Jones, but she resigned to run for the seat that I currently have. And I felt that the conversation wasn't addressing issues of young Black folks in our district. And so I decided to run for that seat. I didn't win, but it opened up a lot of doors because I had no idea what community organizing was. And then I was approached by some folks and became a community organizer after helping elect the first Black mayor of Jacksonville. And so let's be clear, after I ran for office, I know how hard it is. I did not want to run again because my first daughter, Natalie, oftentimes it's lonely, right? People say they're going to help you out, they're going to help you raise money and things like that, and they don't do it. I'll never forget, a woman told me that she remembered me. She remembered me because
she ready to run too.
Right? She remembered me because I was pushing my baby in a stroller in the rain, knocking on doors, right? And so she voted for me because of my dedication. But again, I didn't win. And so I actually decided to make the decision to jump into this race because we were up against a two-term incumbent, someone who is a Black woman. However, she was very anti-Black. Stated that she thanked God for slavery. She was very, very super religious, and there's nothing wrong with religion. However, when you're doing it on the backs of people and holding people down, like members of our brothers and sisters that are LGBT folks, I just had to put a stop to it, right? And so no one wanted to step up. I was recruiting heavily, and I love campaigning, like that's near and dear to my heart. But people were scared. And so I just knew that I didn't want to bring my daughter in this world and to continue living under this woman who was just really detrimental to our community. So I just jumped in the ring, right? And no one wanted to give me money, really. People were so afraid because she was super vindictive. But, like I cut my teeth in campaigning, and I love campaigning, and I had the opportunity to just be super innovative and to do whatever I wanted to do because I didn't have too many people backing me. But then as we were building momentum, right, I had the community behind me though, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what really pushed me over the top, is the fact that I had I had built just allies all across the state. And when this woman started coming after me so negatively, like going real hard, I was getting phone calls. Little old white ladies was calling me saying, I got this horrible text message or this really bad phone call, but I think it's a lie, And so people stood up for me and they spoke out for me. And that's what I was up against. Someone who didn't care about the community, who only wanted power, and like who was beholden to special interest groups. The only people I'm beholden to is the people, because I had so many donations of $1, right? And those are the ones that really meant a lot to me because people were scraping by, right? People had lost their jobs during COVID, during this pandemic, but they felt that we needed a new state rep, and they donated to my campaign. And for that, I'm forever thankful. And so that's why I decided to run, because I felt we didn't have any other options. No one else wanted to jump in, and I just had to do what I had to do.
Well, before I go to you, Rep. Anderson, I just hope folks who are watching heard that, because I think oftentimes it's easy to be upset, it's easy to complain, it's easy to say what they ain't doing, it's easy to hope someone else will step up. But what I heard from Rep. Nixon was like, if no one else steps up, this is so unconscionable. I can't even bring my daughter in this world, I'm going to run. And I think it's that level of kind of passion, energy, intentionality, and focus it's why you're going to be very successful as a representative, and someone will read about for their leadership and for their conviction for the years to come. And Rep. Anderson, Rep. Nixon mentioned she ran right after college. Did you run in high school? Like, what? Tell us how. What? And then how did you how did you decide? Who told you, young black man, that you could be in office so young?
Well, first off, Mayor, that's very funny. I'm gonna have to give you 5 or 10 points for that one. But yeah, so I ran my junior year in college. I was actually transitioned. I went to Pearl River Community College on a soccer scholarship, and had planned to run for the board of aldermen in my hometown, because obviously I needed to be able to finish school and focus on my remaining 2 years, which ended up being 3 years because I ran for state representative during the transition and went to Tulane. And that was difficult for a lot of reasons. But what engaged me in the process in general is my desire to serve. And I think Rep hit the nail on the head. People who have a passion for people and a passion to serve, they don't care whether they hold the position or not. Rep mentioned she went looking for someone to be that vehicle, and she would basically be in the background, but I'm sure moving pieces, which is very important because of her love for service. And I think that's where my passion drives as well. It's not so much as the title as it is the work that you do to make sure that your community is in the best light. And so even in high school, like I started a nonprofit for mentoring young boys. Even in high school, these kids were like 3 years, 3 years older than me, but my desire to see a problem and fix a problem started that early. And so when I got out of high school, went through college, I saw a need in my community. And I worked with the mayor then. I worked with the state representative then, who ended up running for mayor of my city, who was my predecessor. And they were like, just run for the state representative seat and not the board of aldermen. You never know. And so I did, and I've had the great opportunity of serving some amazing people in my community who desire change. And change is not always easy, especially when you have someone our age trying to move us in that direction, because change is scary, and people are reluctant to do it, but it's something that we must do if we want to create the type of communities that we know we all deserve.
So in speaking about change, we are in a new year, in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of a couple pandemics, in the midst of an ongoing 400-year pandemic known as white supremacy. And with that context, what if you were, before I ask you what you're going to do in your seat, I'm going to ask, in the seat you don't have, so you're not accountable for your answer. If you were President Biden, no, actually, I'm going to save that question, because you mentioned something, Rep. Nixon, actually, about representation that I want to really hit on, since this is Black Citizen, we're 3 Black elected officials. And you mentioned the woman you ran against, the rep before you, was Black. She was a Black woman, but her policies, her policy focus, her who she centered seemed to be adversarial to sort of the needs of all people and Black people. So I guess my question is for you all, how do we determine the difference between like tokenism or being placated because the person in power is a Black person? Like, how do we make that distinction, particularly in a moment when there's so few of us that you want to lift up and be supportive and say good job to those who look like us in positions of power? So how do you guys, what compass do you use for yourself personally to make sure you're not just being a token, and not actually doing harm to Black folks by being a Black person, but not moving policy or resources in a way that help Black people? And I'll start with you, with Nixon.
Yeah, so I would say, are you crafting an agenda that centers us? And if you ask that question, is someone crafting an agenda? Are they putting forth bills that are addressing white supremacy, or addressing lowering the poverty rate, increasing the literacy rate, right, or addressing mental health. That is something that our communities are in dire need of, right? That's how you know whether or not somebody's a token. You can have people sit with you all day and chop it up, and they return your phone calls, but if they aren't using their status or using their position to help move the conversation forward, because oftentimes, like, let's be real, like, I'm in Florida. It is a very red state, unfortunately, and we won't get everything passed, but you can start pushing a narrative, right, and working to change hearts and minds to get some things heard, right, and it's important to make sure that whomever, like, you're supportive of is doing just that, right? Like, that they are speaking to the issues and that they are actively working to address those issues. And that's what I would have to say.
And what about you, Rep. Anderson?
Yeah, so I think what we hear oftentimes, that everybody that's skin folk ain't kinfolk. I think that's important, right, to recognize, because we actually fight that here in our legislature, where we have some Black lawmakers who will basically, I hate to use the word sell out, but we'll use that term, sell out for their area at the expense of the majority of folks who look like us, right? And that's a problem, versus working together for the common good of everybody. Because again, we hear injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, right? So if we abide by that concept, I think that we can start to see much more much more comprehensive agenda in regards to advancing the agenda of Black folks in our community. And so even now, we're in a super red state as well, just like rep in Florida. And so we're up against a lot of different challenges, and they are unique to our area, honestly. So when we talk about voter suppression and we talk about criminal justice reform, all of those things are disproportionately affect Black and brown communities. And so the agenda has to be laid out on the table, and everybody have to have buy-in into that agenda. And I think that over the next couple of months, for sure, here, and some of the things that we've seen previously over the last year or two have really sparked a more collaborative effort to kind of engaging folks who have traditionally been this engaged from the process.
Absolutely. So then let me go to the question I was trying to ask, but I wanted to make sure we got that one in. The world's on fire. I mean, it's very clear there's a bunch of things that are broken in our society. So if you were President-elect or President Joe Biden or in VP Kamala Harris, what are some of the things that you would do during your first year in office? And I'll start with you this time, Rep. Anderson.
I get the really, really difficult one. One, I would not want to be President Biden nor Vice President Harris at this particular moment. They both have an enormous task ahead of them to reunite this country after devastation wrecked our nation for the last 4 years. The fortunate part is we're at a pivotal point, and we are deciding where that will head. Which direction we'll head. I think we took a bold step when we said enough is enough, and we're electing, Joe Biden as president, Kamala Harris as vice president, and we are unseating former President Donald Trump. The issue that we saw, though, is that still hundreds of millions of Americans still voted for Donald Trump. That still is a problem. You still have states like Florida, like Mississippi, that continuously, overwhelmingly vote for Donald Trump. And so what we must do as a nation, right? And I don't think we place it on just the federal government. It's a full circle of responsibilities, from federal to state to county to local. We all share responsibility in reuniting this country. Now, how do we do it? Well, from the top, we start by simply addressing or acknowledging that we know that we have racial tension that exists within this country, and we're ready to identify and address those issues and start encouraging and enforcing those conversations at the highest level of government. what we do on a state level, which we have actually seen a lot of states go in the opposite direction. We heard the frustration from folks. We've heard the frustration of folks in regards to voter suppression and their votes being suppressed around the country. States like Mississippi, states like Florida must not go in the opposite direction to continue to further suppress voters and disenfranchise them, which we are seeing happen in our states. On the local level, we've got to pull those folks in who for a long time feel like they've been forgotten about, that they've cast their vote for people who have not had their best interests at heart and have fallen out of the process. We've got to re-engage those folks and meet somewhere in the middle. And that's how I think we start to move this country forward in regards to racial healing.
Come on, Senator. What about you, Rep. Nixon?
Ooh, the rep has those real good political, correct talking points down. So no, I agree with everything that he said, but I'm gonna be just, aspirational in what I think should happen. So number one, I think there should be free VPK all across the board, free preschool, free childcare in general, and then also broadening it upwards to free college, right? I think student loans should be wiped out. I think we need to have a real conversation about reparations within our community as it relates to that. And those are some of the things that I would definitely want to push forward. And just as the representative stated, right, like we need to start really having conversations all across the board, meeting people where they are, and just really talking. Like, I know there's some legislation that I'm interested in filing and pushing here, but in my community, we need to have conversations about it first. And so we have to talk to people and figure out what their values are and figure out where we have commonalities and shared values so that we can, in fact, move this country forward.
Well, again, thank you all for your candor, for your wisdom, for your insight, for your intellect. And I know the co-chairs are going to join us shortly, but you guys have 1 minute sort of statements you would give to the folks. The audience is made of people, Black people, primarily from the Bay Area, who are interested in politics. So if you had a word of wisdom, a word of hope, a word of inspiration, exhortation, or just something on your heart you would like to share before we turn it back over to the co-chairs, please just give us like a minute closing statement. We'll start with you, Rep. Anderson.
Thank you. Yeah, just, if you're an aspiring public servant and you fear, you might not have what it takes, or you fear of your age, which I spent my first year, honestly, Mayor, I spent my whole year traveling, talking to young people and taking calls from young people who had a desire to run for office but felt like they were too young and couldn't win. Ask yourself, why not? The only thing someone can do is not vote for you. So if you have those aspirations, dream big and dare to be extraordinary, and you'll accomplish anything you set your mind to.
And what about you, Rep. Nixon?
So thank you all for having me here. I'm really appreciative, and I love the Bay. I can't wait till this pandemic leaves so I can come over there and visit y'all again. But I want to just echo the same sentiments that Rep. Anderson stated. If you really care about your community, keep doing the work, right? Keep doing the work. If you want to run for office, don't stop doing what you're doing. Just meet people, be your true, authentic self. You don't have to change for anyone. May need to get a little tailored a little bit in regards to just how to present certain topics, but like keep driving forward because you just need the community behind you. And so like really be in it for the community and not for selfish reasons, I would say. And if you're in it for the community, then there's no way you can't win.
Well stated. So in conclusion, just to summarize, we heard again from two superheroes, but superheroes in that they're so normal and they're so much like each and every one of us. You heard from two representatives who have been interested, engaged, and part of the political system since before they were college graduates. And they told us a couple of things. I heard, number one, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent issues. I heard this idea of being useful where you are and finding ways to impact and whether it's mentoring one kid, et cetera, because you don't know where those lessons will take you. And I also heard an understanding of this moment and the need to be fully human, fully Black, and fully yourselves as you seek to lead and navigate systems and institutions that weren't designed for you to run them. And you take that history and you use that as a way to ensure that you, your folks, your family, your communities are better. So again, thank you so much, Rep. Nixon. Thank you so much, Rep. Anderson, for the enlightening conversation, for your example. If there's anything we can do to support you as you continue to push and represent Black people and all people, please count us in as your fellow friends and fellow Black citizens. And with that, I turn it over to the co-chairs.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
You know, my jaw is to the floor. I'm ready to jump back in and run for office in San Francisco. This is, you know, I think just a testament to just as you all's leadership and just ability. I see why you all got elected. It all makes sense now. It's all coming together. We're gonna jump. I think we've got one question each. Should take about 10 or so more minutes, and then we'll sort of wrap up. I'm gonna hand the floor over to Obai.
So one question I have, and I just kind of leave it open to everyone here, is as we look towards, you know, just like Black futures, you know, whether it's economic, whether it's still some of the work that still needs to be done around equity, you know, bare minimum things like access to housing, healthcare issues, you know, like what does the work look like in the future that the community can be doing to achieve like these broader goals? Because as you all know, it's not just the legislature that needs to get stuff done, you know, or at the elected side, but it's also on the community level, on the grassroots. What can like be done to really kind of move us to that next level? And
yeah. You may have to call on a name, Obai.
I think I'm going to go with the mayor, Mayor Tubbs.
Yeah, well, I think it's something that the rep said, and this notion of understanding that you and of yourself are necessary but not sufficient, and that no matter what title you hold, no matter like you're an important cog, but particularly as you know, given your intergovernmental relations work, that in this federalist system, it's going to take federal government, it's going to take state legislators, it's going to take county governments, it's going to take city councils, it's going to take school boards, it's going to take board of supervisors, and it's going to take community members all pushing in the same direction. And that sounds exhausting and almost impossible, because it is. It's hard work. It takes a intentionality and intensity of focus and drive. But I think and that's why I think organizers are so well suited for the role, because you can't just think of like, this is what it says on paper in terms of what I'm able to do, but it's like, this is the goal we want to get to, and these are all the people I have to bring in with me and build as a coalition. So I think it's being very clear about what formal authority you have, what formal power you have, but also realizing that that's just the floor and not the ceiling, and you build on top of that with the powers of other folks that you need to get to the goal that you want to see.
Wow. Thanks for that, Mayor Tubbs. Sarah?
Yep. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. I'll ask Rep. Nixon. It's funny to say that. I consider Angie a friend of mine. As a mother of a 13-year-old daughter struggling with this pandemic and just kind of finding her way through the world, this is more of a personal question to you. What's a piece of advice you give to my daughter and all the daughters out there, or to mothers, just an inspirational, because you've obviously made it, and we're so proud of you. So just a piece of advice for all our daughters and sons.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. And yes, you are a great friend. So I don't think I necessarily made it, but I think a piece of advice that I would give is you can't do it alone. And it does, in fact, take a village. And I am lucky and blessed to have friends to call on, to cry to, right? And I have to give myself grace. Like that's the main piece of advice I would say is give yourself grace, because you're gonna make mistakes, right? You're going to forget to cook sometimes, or your house is going to be a mess. Like, I was on a Zoom call earlier and my computer like dropped down, and my the folks on the Zoom call, they saw like all the laundry still laid out on the couch. Give yourself grace, right? To be who you are, because we're with whatever you're doing, if you're working, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're running for office, or if you're an elected official, if you're a single mom, or if you're a mom in general, or just anyone in general, like, you have to give yourself grace during this pandemic. We are in unprecedented times. A lot of people are unfortunately falling into a deeper depression because they haven't seen folks or talked to folks, been able to hold folks. And so just give yourself grace to make mistakes. Give yourself grace to just relax, and to not to work on not being so overwhelmed, and eventually you'll get to do whatever it is that you need to do, right? So I give myself a lot of grace, especially since I went from 1 kid to 5 kids, because there's been a blend, and I'm learning, and I get frustrated, and sometimes I yell, and then I realize, and I go out and apologize at times. So you just have to give yourself grace.
That was actually great advice for me. So we'll forget about the kids. That was perfect. There is a question for Rep Nixon in chat really quick, if we can. It just says, and maybe you can answer it in chat or answer it now. Who should I be supporting in Florida to help fight voter suppression?
So those are the exact organizations. So it is so funny, because I actually used to work for New Florida Majority. So they actually combined with Organized Florida, and so they're now called Florida Rising. And so they all work together. It's a coalition of organizations all across the state, which I work with, and they are in fact fighting against voter suppression. And it's just so cool. See, like now, because I'm a state rep, I get to run some of the bills that they want to get ran. And so see what happens, like when you elect people from the community, they'll do your work and they'll run your bills. So it's super exciting. But yes, those are the right organizations to be sending money to.
Thank you.
Amazing. I'm gonna wrap up with this last question for Rep Anderson. I'm just gonna put it out there. You're running for mayor. Tell us how we can support and just give a little insight on how it is to run during a pandemic. Like, we're in the middle of a lot. So we'll love your insights on that, and let folks know how you can support. I believe you might be on mute, because I cannot hear you.
Can everybody hear me?
Perfect.
Okay, my bad. Yeah, that's one of those little tricks, I run into with Zoom all the time. But the campaign website is electjeremy.com. My mom was feeling into herself. Some reason she spelled my name Jeramey instead of the traditional way. So you got to play around with it. But it's definitely challenging to run an election in this pandemic, but not impossible. We saw that with Joe Biden. And so the blueprint has been laid already. We just have to follow that blueprint. And so we're doing things that we obviously would not traditionally do, like door hangers and virtual campaign rallies, which I held this past weekend inside the city just to galvanize and engage folks. But Rep, you mentioned something earlier that I thought was very important about engaging people on the grassroots level. It brought me back to one of the Sykes, who's a comedian that I love. She said nothing good trickles, right? So we talk about the legislature, how do we change things? Nothing good trickles, right? It starts on the foundation level. It starts on that grassroots level, and we build a foundation and we go up from there. And so that's one of the things that we're doing in our race, is going back home. I get asked all the time, why on earth would you leave the legislature to run for a local race or run for mayor? And it's because that's where the work is. That's where the impact is. When you talk about folks waking up and trying to figure out what to do in their community, it's on the grassroots level. It is at home. So, Mayor Tubbs, thank you so much for what you do or what you've done in your city, because that's where the impact, that's where the true impact is on the ground in our local communities. And if we want to change anything within our Black communities, it's going to start in our communities, in our neighborhoods, on Jefferson Street, on Joseph Street, those streets we walk down every day. That's where that's going to start. And if we don't connect those folks who say, I don't participate in government politics, I don't like politics, I don't vote, and we don't engage those folks, then we're fighting a lost cause.
Wow. This has met every expectation that I've had just
Yep.
coming into this. So I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to thank the folks who have been sticking with us and have been watching on all our platforms. We've been streaming on Black Citizens Facebook page. That's Black Citizens CA. For those of you all who are looking to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're also streaming on the Bayview Opera House, historic organization in San Francisco. We're streaming on that feed as well. But this has been tremendous. If you want more information about Black Citizen, or you want to RSVP to our future events, visit us at www.blackcitizen.org. Sarah Obai, Rep Nixon, Rep Anderson, Mayor Tubbs, this has been fantastic. And I want to say thank you all so much.
Thank you.